So we hear it all the time. We have the ability to manifest. We have the ability to co-create our reality. So we can bring in our desires, we can bring in situations, we can bring things into our lives. But what's more important than that is realizing that you are constantly manifesting relationships in your life. And you're doing this through the self-talk that you're giving to yourself. The way that you're speaking to yourself is going to be reflected in your external reality through your relationships. So if you have habits of self-depreciation, of feeling unworthy, of not respecting yourself, that's going to be reflected back to you with the people that you're bringing into your life. That's just the way it works. Manifestation goes both ways, negative and positive. So if you want to bring positive relationships into your life, what do? You need to treat yourself with respect. But it's tough because a lot of us are trapped in these cycles. We are in an imperfect world. And when we incarnate, there's unfortunately a lot of people around us who are hurt. There's adults that are hurt, children that are hurt, and they may, and many of us have experienced this, project their pain onto us with the way that they talk to us. And then we begin to absorb that talk as a child. So our inner child becomes wounded and our own inner voice begins to reflect that painful talk that we received from others in our childhood. And then it becomes a cycle because we're talking to ourselves that way, and then we continuously bring in more and more people who are going to speak to us that way. Let me give you an example here. Let's say you're working on a project at work and you're putting a lot of effort into it and you're feeling really good about yourself, and then all of a sudden that negative self-talk creeps up. Maybe you had a teacher that gave you a D in a project and just ripped it apart and it really hurt you badly and you absorbed that, and now that talk is coming back up and you're speaking to yourself that way, and so then you present the project to your boss or to your peers, and then they tear you apart, just like you did in your head. And you say, look, there you go. It's true, I'm not worthy. And what that is a self-fulfilling prophecy, but what I would call it actually is a self-fulfilling sabotage. You sabotaged yourself, and then they reflected it back to you. So it's really actually an illusion. The way that they're treating you actually is an illusion, because that's not really who you are. You really are not. You really are a being of light that's full of worth. So let me just say that it's not always, this is a very simplistic example. It's not always that straightforward. It's not always, you have the negative self-talk and then it's reflected back to you right away. What really happens is there's a buildup of many, many years of speaking to yourself negatively and then bringing in people, romantic partners, friendships, any sort of relationship that then reflects all the years of negative self-talk that has been going on in your mind. But let me tell you something. These relationships, these people that are hurtful towards you, these people that are reflecting back to you this negative self-talk, are actually gifts. And you may wonder, how? How is this person a gift to me? Well, I'll tell you why. Because when somebody treats you with disrespect or they hurt you, it's a very real experience. When you are talking to yourself negatively in your mind, it's very easy for you to dismiss it. You just say, oh, I had this negative self-talk. This is how I think about myself all the time. I'm just going to let it go. But when somebody else does it to you, it's a very real experience. It's very tangible. And because they're separate from you, it gives you an opportunity to set a boundary. It's much easier to set a boundary with another person than it is to set a boundary with yourself. It's just how it is, because you can't really get away from yourself. Somebody else is actually separate from you. So you can set this boundary and you can say, hey, no, I don't appreciate the way you just spoke to me. I don't believe that. I don't want you to treat me this way anymore. And you may actually have to physically separate yourself from this person. So you've set this boundary, but a lot of people stop there. They set the boundaries and they say, hey, look, I'm setting all of these boundaries with these people. Why am I still bringing narcissists into my life? Well, it's because you didn't go to the root of the problem. That person treating you that way is just a reflection of that inner self-talk. So you need to go back and you need to go to the root. So you set the boundary with the person. You set the boundary in the physical reality. And then you reflect on the self-talk that you've been doing to yourself. You say, hey, the way the person just spoke to me sounds a lot like how I've been speaking to myself, how I've been treating myself. So you do that self-reflection and then you correct. You correct that self-talk. So when that person spoke to you that way and you noticed how it felt and you set that boundary with them, you then reflect on where you need to set boundaries in your own mind, in your own thoughts, and you set those boundaries with yourself, and then you correct it. And as you continue to correct this, as you go through this pattern over and over again, then you'll begin to start treating yourself with respect. Your inner self-talk will change, and the relationships that you pull into your reality will then change as well. Thank you so much for listening.